Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to this talk on grief. I'm starting a new series of spiritual talks. The first topic is grief. Please leave below any other topics you want to talk about. I'm going to be talking about transitioning, growth, heartbreak, all those kind of things, and how spirituality and that topic coincide. I just want to get straight into this. This is probably going to be a long video. They're not structured because I want people to take as much away from these videos as they can. And just forgive me for my mellow mood, because as I film this, I've just found out that Chadwick Boseman has passed away. I feel like we're all going to grieve a little bit. I just want to, before I answer any questions, because I did ask you for questions and I am going to answer them. I'm not an expert on grief. I'm not a qualified expert on grief. I just have my own personal experiences of grief, and I will talk about that briefly. But as a world, we are grieving, and I want to talk about that because grief is a very vast subject, and grief is anything to do with loss. Grief doesn't mean necessarily that someone has passed away. Sometimes you can just grieve having to leave your family home, or grieve having to leave a job, or grieve a relationship or a friendship of someone who's not in your life anymore, not because they passed away, just because you've grown apart. Like, grief is something we all have to deal with, whether you've lost someone to death or not. We all grieve, and at the moment the world is a very heavy place. There's a lot of traumatic things going on, and I have been grieving because it's heavy. It's heavy, and I just want to give you, sometimes we feel like we need permission to grieve, and I want to give you that permission if you're looking for it. You can grieve the way the world used to be, and you can grieve all the innocent souls we've lost to police brutality. Grieve the, innocent souls who are being killed and abused and everything every day. The world is heavy, and we wouldn't be human if we didn't grieve it. I first experienced grief when I was 15 years old. My best friend committed suicide, and it's something I still deal with. That's something that doesn't go away, and I have continued to grieve over the years for different things. I've lost other family members since then, and obviously we've lost a lot of celebrities. And sometimes people will say things like, how can you grieve a celebrity? Well, if Michael Jackson's music's been in your home since you were 2 years old, then you will grieve them, same as Whitney Houston. I love and idolise Whitney Houston, and there's still some people's deaths, Kobe Bryant, that I can't. I heard, in my local area we had a tragic accident of a 26-year-old mother who is dead and leaves behind 2 beautiful babies. And it's traumatic. Even if we don't know those people, it's sad and it hurts, and it's okay. It's okay. I feel like I'm rambling, but grief is one of those subjects where it's not a straightforward linear path. We all grieve in different ways. Some people get angry when they grieve, some people get terribly sad, some people get depressed, some people shut off, some people use their pain as motivation, some people, everyone, there's no right or wrong way to grieve, and every day is different. But I want to say right now, in the way that this world is, and the way that things are going down, and the traumatic things that we are waking up and seeing every single day, if you are grieving and maybe you don't know why, maybe you're going to realise just now that you are grieving, and it's okay. So let's answer some questions. I asked for your questions over both on Instagram and on my YouTube community page. Sorry, I'm a little bit stuffy. I just broke down. Like, sometimes when you hear about people who have passed on now, it can feel a bit numb. Like, oh, another person. But I just, you know, I've been asking Spirit a lot for help for us, because we need it. Grief in the dictionary is described as intense sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. So yes, when we think about grief, we link it usually to a passing. And, you know, I always, you know, grief and spirituality are linked hand in hand, because obviously we believe in life after death. But that doesn't mean we don't grieve and that the pain is any less, because it's not. And when I was about 15, I lost one of my best friends to suicide, and it was the first time I had ever experienced grief as I knew it. Because if I look back, I probably definitely experienced traumatic grief in my childhood, but this was like, I knew I was grieving. And it's dark. It's dark and it's lonely and it's sad. And even though I had a group of friends who were grieving as well, I felt like I just grieved a bit differently. I just shut off. That's how I am as a person anyway. I'm quite a private person, but for me, I just completely closed down. And the way I personally dealt with the grief, and sometimes now, even when I hit anniversaries, birthdays and things, it's very difficult. And that has impacted my life, you know, the way I choose to treat people and everything like that. But I will do a video on that situation another time. But I wrote a letter every single month, and I still have those letters to my friend as if she was still here. And on the final letter, on like the 12th letter, I kind of said goodbye. You know, I'm not going to write the letters anymore. I actually wrote them in this room that I'm sitting in right now. But I definitely went through the 7 stages of grief, and one of the emotions I remember personally feeling, which I was very surprised to feel, but I think with suicide it's probably quite common, is guilt. I felt a massive amount of guilt. And I don't now, because I understand that what she did was her choice. But as a 15-year-old, obviously, you know, I had drama therapy for my grief, which helped me tremendously, because I am not someone who is good at communicating how they feel, believe it or not. I'm very, very private, internalized introvert, especially when it comes to my emotions. So that really helped me a lot. But I'm going to answer your questions, because I feel like you've asked a lot of incredible questions, and I'm going to try and answer them all. You know, I'm not skipping out on anything on this video, because it's a really important topic that we need to talk about. Again, I just want to say, if you're grieving, you know, allow yourself space to do that. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. And there's no right or wrong thing to grieve about. Grief is an intense feeling over loss. And like I said, that could be loss of a job, loss of a friendship, loss of, say, I don't know, you had a very special personal item that had been handed down to you, or that you'd been gifted and you've lost it. You can grieve over that. You know, grief is an intense emotion around loss. And there is no limit on that. You know, if you're grieving, allow yourself to grieve. Okay. How to tell your loved ones are around you, spotting signs, etc. Okay. This house, I've grown up in this house. This is my only home I've ever lived in. This is a very supernatural house. And one day I would do a video talking about the supernatural things that have happened in this house, because when I was young, not so much now, but when I was younger, a lot of weird things would happen in this house. We'd come home and our mirrors would have been taken off the wall and been put on the floor, weird things like that. But one thing, all spirits are different. You have the basic signs, white feathers. I can remember walking down the road and having white feathers just fall mid-air. Sometimes spirit, if they can, because it takes a lot of energy for them to do so, they will physically show themselves to you. I feel like I've probably had near enough every single one in the book. Sometimes you'll hear them. Again, that takes a lot for a spirit to do. Sometimes you'll stumble across like an old object that miraculously appears. Sometimes things will go missing and then you'll find them a few days later. You know, spirit love to play games like that. Sometimes you'll hear a song on the radio at just the right time and you'll know it's them. Sometimes you'll hear the same phrase or saying or song over and over again. Sometimes you'll see the same number over and over again. Sometimes you'll hear that person's name when you are thinking of them the most. The signs are absolutely unlimited. I used to, and I went to a medium actually, and she told me it was one of my grandfather's. I used to get tugging on the back of my hair, and yeah, I had that for years, and I still get it every now and then, not so much now, but you know, spirits show themselves. Each and every single one of them will have their unique way of showing themselves to you. Yeah, I would say if you are specifically wanting to seek a sign from someone, you meditate and you ask them. Or again, dreams. Dreams are big when it comes to spirit, because sometimes we block ourselves. Sometimes we block ourselves from actually receiving from spirit because our human brain tells us that things aren't real. So sometimes we'll see something and we'll be like, our soul knows, our soul recognizes it. But then our ego and our mind says, no, it's just coincidence. And that's why dreaming and sleeping is so important. And I would always say, you know, if you're asking for a sign, the best time is probably before you're about to go to sleep. And just to say, please come to me in my sleep, or show me a sign in my sleep, or when I just wake up, because that's when our guards are most down. But the signs are limitless, endless. A sign could be absolutely anything. Does talking to the spirit of a loved one that has passed on help, and do they hear you? I personally think so. It's something that has helped me majorly. Like I said, I wrote letters. I'm a writer. If you're a writer, I would say write letters and journal. If you are someone who prefers to speak, then speak. I definitely personally think so, and yes, they can hear you. And the thing with spirit is they work on a very different plane to us. So even if you aren't speaking out loud and you're thinking and you're feeling, they can feel you and they can hear you still. They can hear your energy. Is working on energy. They can definitely hear you. And actually, if you speak to any psychic medium or anything, they say it's actually a thought, because your thought has frequency more so than your words. So actually it's more thought. When you're thinking of them and you're remembering and you're reminiscing, that's when they tend to come close to you. But they can definitely hear you, and I personally think it helps. How do you deal with losing a significant other? I have never lost a significant other. And when I think about Vanessa Bryan and Lauren London and everyone else who has lost their significant other, my heart shatters, I'm telling you, into 10,000 million pieces. And sometimes my brain, you know, sometimes your brain wanders into dark places, and I think about that, and I think about how I would deal with that. To be honest, it's cliche. I don't think it's something you will ever get over, because a partner is someone you choose to love, okay, and that is the most precious, special thing you've chosen to love that person, you've chosen to spend your life with them, you've chosen that. And to lose that is, there's no words for how traumatic it is. So to deal with it, I don't think there's any right way to deal or wrong way. I think the only thing that eases it, because I don't think you will ever get over it, and that's me being entirely honest, I can't see a way of ever completely healing from that. You can come to terms with it, but it's time. I think that's the same with most grieving procedures. Time heals wounds. It doesn't erase them, but it definitely heals them. Time and space. And also, you have to remember when someone dies, and I can remember when my friend did commit suicide, and I've always been spiritual my whole entire life. But I remember walking to the shop with my mum, and my mum said to me, because the funeral was coming up, I remember it so well, and my mum said to me, no matter what happens, always remember that it's just her body being buried, it's just her shell. And in that moment, I kind of was taken back, because I then remembered, because in grief you can lose your spirituality and you can lose that all because you're overwhelmed with emotion, which obviously you would be. It was in that moment I remembered that energy lives on. So just because they're not here with you physically doesn't mean they're not there with you spiritually. Have their pictures around you, have their clothes with you, have their clothes made into pillows, have their clothes made into bears. Keep them with you, you know? Just because someone's body isn't here anymore doesn't mean they're not here. And allow yourself the time and space to still love them, because grief is the final act of love. And when you love someone, when you choose to love someone, you would love them forever, right? So allow yourself to do that, regardless of whether it's been 10 days, 10 months, 10 years. And still have them around you where you can. People will say, you need to go, you need to move on, you don't need to do anything. You know, you don't need to do anything. You need to do what's right for you. And if having their clothes made into pillows, I've seen so many videos of that and I love it. If having that helps, then that's what you do. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and I can't express that enough. You find peace in knowing your loved one is okay wherever they could be. Spirituality brought me peace. My faith brought me peace. And I know everyone's faith and belief is different. I grew up from a young age knowing that there was life after death and that people live on. And so for me, when I grieve, I know everyone's grieving is different. For me, I haven't grieved because I think they've gone somewhere and, you know, I can't ever obtain them or have them near me again. I grieve because I've lost the physical aspect of that person. One, again, is to ask for signs. If you are worried that they're not at peace, or if you're worried that they're not at peace, then ask them. The thing is, we're not taught this, and so when I sit here as a psychic medium and I say, no, they're still here, people think you're crazy. And I get that, because if you're not into this thing and you don't know about it, then yeah, you would. But please think about it. You're not your body. And if you think about the miracle that is earth and life and how we're even here, you cannot tell me that when we die, we just die. Interesting. Do they touch you before they leave? Physical sensations that manifest on the body. Okay, I haven't experienced someone letting me know that they had passed away before they'd passed away, but I have heard stories about it. But literally it must have been a few days before my best friend committed suicide, and we weren't huggers. Like, she was not a hugger, okay? I had never hugged her. We'd been friends for about a year. I had never hugged her, and the last time I saw her, I felt this overwhelming rush to hug her, and I got to say goodbye, and I will forever be eternally grateful to Spirit for that, because I got to say goodbye whether I knew it or not. I remember pulling away, I remember holding her and pulling away and thinking that was very bizarre, but I will forever be grateful for that moment. So I think yes, I think you can get sensations from Spirit to let you know that someone is passing, or if that person's transitioning before you find out. Yes, I do think it's possible for that to happen. I 100% think it's possible to happen because of that experience that I had myself. It's not exactly identical to having physical sensations or like touches before they leave the earth, but I definitely think it's possible. I think it's possible to have a dream and then wake up and hear of someone's passing. I think it's possible to feel something or just have a knowing, especially if you're emotionally connected to something, because emotions are energy, and you know, our emotions towards someone tie us to that person. So yes, you will. Do they suffer as well emotionally since they are no longer physically here? Yes, depending on how you pass. If you pass suddenly in an accident or suicide, or you know, anything that's sudden, dramatic, yes, before your time, 100%. And you know, like I said, my mum said it exactly right. This body is just our shell. This personality, who I am, my spirit, my soul, that goes on. And of course, to look back and to see your loved ones in pain, that can be painful, 100%. But Spirit are wiser and more knowing than us, and that's why when you pass over, you transition, because you don't just pass over and you're knowing, and you know, that takes time. But I would definitely say they do, obviously depending on who you are as a person, who you've left behind, and the circumstances. Feel our emotions, absolutely. That's how they know when to come close. They work with us on an emotional, energetical level. Like I said, it's more our thoughts and our feelings than our words with Spirit. So you'll find that it's more so when you're thinking of someone and you're remembering and all those emotions are coming up, that you'll start to see more signs. I love this question as well. How do we honour them in the highest light and continue the intimate relationship we had on the physical plane? What a beautiful question. Birthdays, Christmases, all of those special celebrations, anniversaries, we talk about them. And you know, I still make sure to talk about my friend, you know, and I still remember her, and we remember them. You know, just because someone died doesn't mean we can't talk about them anymore. You know, I think there is that kind of taboo when someone passes away. It's like, oh, we don't talk. No, talk about them, remember them, have their photos up. If you've got items of them, have them out. It is painful, and I would understand if you put them away for a little while, but if you want to have that person around you, then have their stuff out. You know, their spirit lives on, you know. And sometimes I think about, you know, the music we would have listened to together, and that reminds me of her. Or you know, sometimes if I am in the area and I'm like driving past her house, like I'll just take a minute in myself to just remember her. And it's a very private thing, but we celebrate them, you know. A life lived, no matter how long or how short, is to be celebrated, and that's how we do it, you know. At the end of the day, you are living your life, and grief can really overtake you to want to take on someone else's life, but they wouldn't want you to do that, you know. The way to honour them, I believe, is to respect their spirit as if they were still here, you know. If you want to hold a space for them, like if you're having dinner or something and you want to hold a chair for them empty, do that. Like, you know, if you're having Christmas or whatever and you want to just have a present under the tree and maybe you burn it. Or I used to do balloon releases. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it every birthday. On my friend's birthday, I would go. It would be a tradition. I would go to the card shop, I would get a inflatable balloon, I would write a letter, and I would send it off. And that's one of my favourite things to do. Balloon ceremonies are my favourite things to do in regards to grief, because they're so healing. You write it and you let it go and you just watch it, and you know that they're getting that, and you know actually they're there, right there with you. And I love that. I love that a lot. Okay, another thing I forgot to mention earlier on the signs thing is cold and hot air is another way that you can know spirit's close to you, because sometimes I just feel random breezes and I know that they're close. Yes, how can we help them, or what they need from us on this side? Okay, the only thing I can say is when spirit needs your help, which is very rare by the way, because once you cross over, your jobs and priorities and everything are really to kind of help us. Their job becomes to help us rather than the other way around. But I can't say I've had one time I can remember a spirit coming to me and really being quite persistent in the fact that I get a message across to someone. And I waited and I waited and I waited. I was like, okay, but the feeling didn't go, it's a feeling. And then I had to literally sit down and just record a reading for this person that I know. And I had to send it to her. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but these people that I have on the other side, they're very persistent that I have to talk to you and you have to hear this. But if a spirit wants your help, believe me, you will know about it. There will be a nagging feeling. You'll find yourself in the same place, or you'll find yourself looking at the same person's social media pages, or you'll find them popping up again and again. Like, they will make it known to you. If they need your help, they will let you know. Trust me. How do you stop grieving over your past? And I really loved this question, because that's another thing. When I started this, I said that grief isn't always just losing someone to death. Sometimes when you have a traumatic childhood, and we all have things that have happened in our childhoods that are traumatic, you know, you have to grieve like what you've been through, and it's a process. It is a process, and I can't say what is the right or wrong thing to do. I can just give you a number of tools that might work for you. Journaling, reading, drama therapy, exercise, cooking, eating. Eating's probably not the best one, but I will say that as a Taurus. Rest, reparenting is a big one. If you are talking about a traumatic childhood you had, then you are going to need to reparent yourself, and it's a big one. It's a big old topic. I want to say that this video isn't going to answer all your questions in regards to grief, and maybe I'll have to do a part 2, because like I said, I'm not a qualified expert when it comes to grief. I can only speak from my personal experience. It takes time. And I know that's a big old cliche, but time is a massive healer, because in time we grow, in time we learn, in time we understand, in time spirit shows themselves to us. It all happens over time. You know, when you fall over and you scrape your arm and you have a big cut gushing up your arm, it doesn't heal the next day. It sometimes doesn't heal within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and sometimes you're left with a massive scar. And just because you can't physically see grief on your body, it's exactly the same. It scars you. And sometimes us as humans, we want to fix everything and we want to make everything perfect. We want to say, no, I don't want the scar. I don't want the scar on my body. I don't want it to be there. I don't want the memory. When it comes to losing someone, you can't get rid of that scar. That's with you. And grief and death are a part of life. And we have to allow ourselves space. And when I say allow ourselves space, I mean allow yourself time to cry, allow yourself time to be angry, allow yourself time to express in a way that you need to express yourself. There is no, I'm going to say it again, I don't know how many times I've said it in this reading, but there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Speak to whoever it is you've lost. They haven't gone anywhere. You know, physically, yes. Energetically, spiritually, they are around you. And if you speak to them, you'll be so surprised at the answers that you actually get. I believe that wholeheartedly in my heart. You know, we go on. We go on. It's hard, and don't diminish how hard it is. Time and time. You know, it's cliche, and I do kind of hate to say it, but time. I'm not just talking about giving yourself time, I'm talking about taking time out, taking time away, using time as a healer. taking space to mourn. You know, if you want to have a corner or a room in your house where you go and you spend time with that person and their memories and their energy. And also, one thing that spirit love, and I have to say this, is laughter and remembering the good times and the funny times and the happy times you had with that person. And it's hard because they're not physically there with you anymore, but spiritually, energetically, they are with you. So call on them. You know, grief is really difficult, and just because spirit goes on and lives and is still with you doesn't mean you can't grieve, because grief is a natural part of life. Whether you've lost someone to death, you've lost an item, you've lost a job, you've lost something, grief is a natural emotion, and you need to allow yourself time and space to work through it. So I'm going to round this off. I hope it's been some kind of insightful. I feel like I've been a bit over the place because I feel like my emotions are a bit up and down. But I hope you've been able to take something from this, and I will be doing another episode of Spiritual Talks. This is something I'm going to continue to do, so please leave below any topics you'd like me to talk about, any questions you might have, and I'll be happy to answer them in the next video. But thank you so much for being with me, lovelies. If you're grieving, I am with you. I love you. You will get through this. Allow space in your heart to feel what you feel, and I will see you soon. Bye.